Cool. All right, guys. So today we're going to be doing things a little bit different. We're going to start this call off by just having Grant pretty much give us, let's say, like a testimonial almost. Essentially, he's just going to be talking to you guys a little bit about his journey. From everything from like pre-sales, who he was. I think you guys can probably relate to a lot of that. To him finding us all the way to him, getting a job, getting a second job, becoming a setter, and eventually moving into a closer role. All in what has it been like fucking 3 or 4 months since you joined the program or something like that?
Like 3 months, bro.
Yeah, unreal. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get this whole thing going. I know we still got, like I said, a couple people joining. That's okay. So yeah, let's kind of kick the start off. First of all, Grant, I just want you to give a quick little introduction to who you are. Obviously, like more pre-sales, right? Like, who is Grant Garcia?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, obviously, my name is Grant. I know a good amount of y'all. But I'm 20 years old. I'm currently a part-time student now. But before this, like fast forward before all this happened, I was a full-time student. I'm a sophomore right now at the University of Arkansas. Um, Dude, high school growing up, all it was sports for me. I was just always doing shit like that. And then once that ended, I started like looking more into like, online business, making money online. I just saw what everyone was doing on social media. Like pretty much, I'm sure all y'all all felt the same way at some point. But then I went to college, fucked off quite a bit, bro. Joined a fraternity, went through pledgeship, did all that, like kind of put everything that I was doing before on the back burner. Just freshman year, partied, fraternity life, like that was it. Like literally that was it. I was living in a dorm room. And then summer, I worked an internship, 40-hour weeks, was making $20 an hour, which I thought was fucking great. And it was good at the time, right? I was my freshman year. And then I came back to school for my sophomore year, moved into a fraternity house. Um, Fucked off even more for like the first 2 months, like from August to like October. I was just, living in a fraternity house, doing all that shit. And then that's when I was like, dude, something's got to change. I gotta lock back in a little bit. I just didn't have my priorities right, and so that's kind of where I was always just messaging. I was always just messaging people on Instagram, like almost appointment setting for myself. I would just go to people I thought had like high level Instagrams, and I would just message them, not even like or anything, just so they could follow me, like just so I could like feel like I was, doing something, like getting in touch with the right people. And that's when everyone, like three different dudes, a lot of dudes from Tribe, were pointing me towards Ethan. So I randomly just text him and just expected to get on a call. I didn't even know any of this shit existed, honestly. They were just tagging sales, sales, sales. And then, texted him. I think the first thing he texted me back is like, bro, I'm on some trip, smoking cigars with some girls in the pool. Like, it's not a good time. So then I re-hit him up like a week later. I literally like re-hit him up, and sure enough, we got on a call. Did not expect to fucking, pay him any money or anything. I just wanted to talk, and sure enough, man, I got piffed. He walked my ass down, made me feel like I needed to change. And dude, I was scared. I was even telling him on the phone. I was like, bro, I'm not even trying to give you objections. Like I don't know. I genuinely need to think about it.
Yeah,
And sure enough, it was like the same.
let's talk a little bit more about that real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, but because I think a lot of you guys can probably relate. I have very similar conversations with most of you guys here. Like now that you guys are stepping into sales roles, you understand that like that's something you're going to hear all the time. Obviously, I've been in sales for so long, like I've heard that. Like the objection you were giving me, the main one you were hung up on was really just like a fear and doubt objection, right? Obviously, you're not going to come out the gates and be like, "Yo, I'm scared." Like who is? But that's what it was, right? Like you weren't sure you're going to be able to see results. I know you tried having an agency before this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
No,
like
so I tried all that shit. Tried. Didn't make, I made some money, but like nothing crazy. It wasn't consistent or anything. I was just trying just to try, like just to say I was trying to be a business owner at 19 years old and do that whole shit.
yeah, now we
But
know.
yeah, we get on the call.
of course, like when you
Yeah,
do,
we get on the call and I was just scared as fuck. Right. Like
go ahead, go ahead.
Ethan remembers, man. I was like telling him every single thing. And I remember the one thing that got me over the hump. And I didn't even pay it. It wasn't even a one call close for me. I took a day on him, told him I had to think about it. But the one thing
I
that he
think you took
said
a
that like
couple
stuck
hours,
with
right? I think it was literally a couple hours, huh? You, it was a
yeah, it
rain
was a couple
World
hours or
Series.
something.
You were trying to watch the game, and you were like, "Yo, I'm watching the game right now. Let me finish till this game ends." And I was like, "All right, you're from Dallas. That's fair. I'll let you finish the game." And then right after that game ended, I called your ass immediately.
Literally, like right when the fucking confetti was going off, sure enough, I was still unsure. And sure enough, Ethan fucking hits my line. He's like, bro, Rangers win. Let's talk about it. I was like, fuck. And then yeah, the one thing that he said that like got me over the hump, because the main objection I was giving him is I was living in a fraternity house, right? Like nothing was certain. Like, dude, music going crazy, like everything you'd imagine living in a fraternity house is what I was living in. And so I was just like, I don't know if I can make something like this work, man. Which obviously wasn't a real objection, right? It was just like it was fear, it was doubt. And I remember the one thing he said to me was like, he was like, dude, like Grant, if I were to guarantee you like a role tomorrow that paid you 10K a month, like in your exact same situation right now, like would you find a way to make it work? Like would you go to the library, like if you have to, like get a study room, fucking make calls, lock in, like if it guaranteed you 10K. And when he said that, bro, I was literally cornered because I was like, fuck. Yeah, I mean, of course I would. Um, and at that point, I was like, yeah, you know what, I got to try this, and I did it, man. I had the money, but I didn't even pay him in full. I was like still scared. So we did like the affirm option. I thought that was the better route because I was scared, and then, dude, I guess that brings me to like actually joining Sales Samurai. Um, and yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I came to find Sales Samurai.
Yeah. So another question then, following up down that line. So I say something a lot, and I try not to say it on sales calls because on a sales call it can be pretty salesy. But I do believe that people pay to pay attention, right? At the end of the day, like if you would pay me $900,000, like you would literally be calling my line 45 times every day, for a year. And obviously, like I'm not making you pay that much money, but regardless, like this was, correct me if I'm wrong, but was this not one of the biggest purchases you had made to date?
No, it was. I had never bought something for anywhere close to what I paid, right? Like ever. Like I was still pretty young. Like I bought like maybe the nicest thing I bought is like a fucking pair of golden gooses for like 500 bucks or
Yeah.
something like that. But dude, nothing like that wasn't really like in my head materialistic, where it was all kind of like, okay, this is all still new to me, especially.
Yeah. You,
Um,
you never paid a lot
but
of money to bet
my
on
first
yourself, essentially, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And then it was weird, like after I bought it, which is anything, right? Like whether it's good or bad, this happened to be fucking great. But whether it's good or bad, like, whether the program gives you a fuck ton of value or not, like just like doing that and betting on yourself and having that like, over your head, it kind of just makes you like have to make it work. At least it's what it did for me. Like from that day on, I was like, okay, just paid this guy a lot of money. Before that, I was thinking about how I was gonna fucking pay for spring break a couple of months down the road, and I was like, fuck, like, I got to make this work now. And then yeah, dude, I went right through the fucking course, multiple times, and then I was banging Ethan's line, like, bro, like, finish this, like, and then yeah, it was just like a different confidence, like a different like. As soon as I like made that jump and bet on myself, I felt like, okay, now I really can do this. Like it was a weird confidence boost. I can't really explain, but I'm sure most of y'all felt like the same way. You know what I mean? Like once you actually do what you say you're gonna do and put like, 3 grand aside it's like, all right, fuck this. I'm going all in. And that's what it did for me at least.
Yeah, so now let's kind of talk about the outreach because I know a lot of the guys here, like they're still trying to land jobs. Obviously, like when you joined, I didn't even have the whole program on like teaching people how to land roles. Instead, like when people ask me for help, I kind of give you some guidance. So let's talk about like what you did, in finding jobs because you actually had a job before the one you're in right now. So I kind of want to hear about like a little
Yeah.
bit what you did, conversations we had, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So like Ethan said, it was before any of that, his like landing a role course that even came out. So it was more just like me
Now,
hitting him
would you
up,
like some
you
solvents?
know,
Just
asking him for some advice. But then like like I said earlier, I mentioned in the call, before any of this, before I was working or anything, I was always reaching out to people on Instagram, like literally doing exactly what I was doing when I was trying to land a role. Beforehand, just trying to like, get in touch with people. And then I just started messaging people, you know, and trying to just get them to like pay attention to what I was saying without actually like trying to come across as like what all the messages they were getting. And so I did that for a couple of days. Um, and yeah, like, soon after I started landing interviews. Um, but you have to weed through a lot of those because a lot of these guys like that you're messaging, you don't know, you're just blindly shooting shots. Like a lot of these guys, don't have any like real business model up yet, and they'll put you on an interview, but you gotta kind of vet these interviews, and like vet who I was reaching out to, which at the time I thought any interview was a good interview, which it is, like it's all experience. But I ended up landing this fitness offer. I was working for a guy named Alex Mendoza. He's pretty popping like in Australia. He's like a fitness influencer, sells like a bodybuilding course, so to speak. And I was doing some like IG setting for him, like on his Instagram. Um, and it was good, but I was like, even when I landed that role, Ethan was always telling me like, hey, you have a role, but keep reaching out, keep looking, because you're always one win away from like a role that's gonna like completely like change your life. And so I had that role. I was hyped, I was working in it. It was good experience. And then even though I had the role, I was still reaching out to people. And I was still hitting up Ethan. Like I didn't just, completely fuck off. And then yeah, that one win came. Like I think it was like I had bought in the course like October 28th. I still remember the day. And then November I started working for that other guy for like most November. And then sure enough, like end of November came around and I got that offer that was like, okay, this is that breakthrough moment I needed. And then yeah, I'm still currently on that offer now. It puts me to where I'm at now. Um, but yeah, that was kind of like that's how outreach went. It's important, like I know a lot of y'all are looking for roles. It's important, like once you get a role, unless you're just from day one just cranking, the business is like this is a really good role. And Ethan's there to tell you if it is or not. I mean, he's the best at knowing what's right and what's not. You gotta keep reaching out to people like nonstop. And it's just good for your social media in general. Like but yeah, that's kind of puts me to like landing the role,
Yeah,
the
so
right
about
role.
that then. So yeah, so you landed the role. I one of my connections had an opening, and I made a connection because, of course, like at that time, I wasn't necessarily helping guys place roles unless I was very confident that they were someone who was going to be able to upstand my reputation. And at the time, like that was the reason I gave Grant this role. It's like, I mean, granted, I didn't give him the role, right? He earned it, but I gave him an opportunity to apply there. And the reason I did that was again because like he had ran through my course like I don't even how many times at this point, like fucking 5 times or some shit. I mean, every day this guy was sending me pictures, sending me videos of him like watching the course and be like, "Yo, rewatching it right now. This shit's gas." Da da da. And yeah, I mean that showed me like, oh, okay, this guy's really taking things serious. And so at the end of the day, when I make connections, like if you guys are doing the same things like Grant's doing, you guys are like really fucking showing me like you guys are gonna take this as seriously as you possibly can. Yeah, as soon as I get good opportunities, you guys are top on my list. So I want to try and make sure I'm getting you guys in here and helping you guys land good roles. But regardless, like just because I make an introduction for you doesn't mean you get the job. And so talk a little bit about like the interview process, what that was like, what you think you did well in the interview, because some of the people on this call have been in interviews and haven't gotten an offer afterwards. And so like if you can give a little bit more context as far as like, yeah, what was that interview like? I know you sign NDAs with your offers, so you don't necessarily have to spill all the details, but as much as you can, just about preparing for it. Some things that kind of shocked you, some things you probably could have done better despite landing the role. Some stuff like that about the interview.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Um, well, like before I even went into the interview, I had to like interview for a couple other jobs, but they weren't anything crazy. And so I worked with Ethan, like I was hitting him up like, hey dude, help me out. And he helped me out. He told me everything that they were gonna ask. He told me like how to frame myself. Because at that time I didn't have much experience. And then the interview came around, and honestly, like I'm not gonna say it was easy, but me just hopping on the interview and like being a normal person with like some sort of like confidence about me. Like I was told like, hey, you're gonna have to role play, you're gonna have to like, live handle objections, which I was ready for. Like the course prepared me for that. But I literally just got on the call. It was with like, one of the, because I was trying to be an appointment setter. It was like one of the appointment setter heads and the girl that works on the back end. And I was literally just, using the fuck out of Ethan, like saying, hey, I work with Ethan like very closely, which I do. And then dude, just being normal and just like talking and like not being like a weirdo, right? Because at the end of the day, like an appointment setter, when you're like getting into an offer, you don't need to go like reinvent the wheel and like tell them, hey, I'm gonna do all this, because it's a pretty like entry level position. And so me, I just went on there, had good conversation, used obviously like talked about like some of the stuff I learned with Ethan, which put me at like, they like that. And then, yeah, like at the end of the call, they literally said like, hey, you seem well spoken. You work with someone. Normally we role play with people, but we're not even going to do that. And dude, I was hired. So like, I'm not saying every interview is going to be like that. Of course, some are going to test you more than others. But at the end of the day, if you just show up and like literally be yourself, and frame like, hey, you know what? I have a coach. I'm working closely with him. They're not going to say no to that. Like a lot of people that apply don't even work with like a sales coach or mentor or whatever you want to call it. And so that combined with just you being authentic to who you are is like, that's good enough, I think.
Yeah, and to
At least it was for me.
yeah, to explain a little bit more from the employer perspective too, like a reason that Grant was able to get that job without even having a role play, despite it being like one of the most competitive roles to land in this industry, is because like even when he's talking right now, you guys can tell like he's like sitting back, like shoulders are square. He's very confident. He's speaking from his chest. He's not like talking with a lot of uptones, inflections, things that show that you're nervous. Naturally, he's very confident, and he said a couple times like you just be yourself, right? Like that's really important because when you're the most confident when you're in your own skin, right? So if you're trying to be someone that you're not, obviously it's not going to work out for you guys. But having that energy in general is something that's really rare with an entry level setter position. To observe that on a call is definitely a dead giveaway that like this person's going to be taking it serious. You combine that with him again referencing over and over, not only that he's working with me, but things that he's learned by working with me. Dude, yeah, you guys having a mentor is already putting you guys in the top 5% of everyone who applies, like just that alone. If you couple that with, yeah, like the confidence that, you need to bring into one of these calls, dude, like you guys could easily land a role the same way that Grant did. And that's one thing I just want to emphasize a lot because I know a lot of you guys are like nervous going into the interviews, right? Like you haven't been in the job before, you've never done what a setter does yet. And perhaps maybe Grant had some confidence because he had another job right before that. So he'd already kind of seen what setting was like. So perhaps that could be a good role for you guys as well. Just try and get your feet in the water immediately with an offer, no matter what the offer is. But I think that's a big reason why he was able to kind of skip past some of that other stuff that you guys have probably had to do on interviews your own, right? Like the role plays, objection handling, and whatnot. Just him being able to come.
Another thing is real quick. Like, I think Ethan said it on the last week's call we were on. He said it to me before my interview as well. I mean, dude, there's so many offers out there that are all like really like there's a lot of good offers out there. There's a lot of shit offers out there. But at the end of the day, like if you go in there and like, you be who you are and you do everything like I did and they don't take you or whatever, like dude, there's like it's right on to the next. It's like, putting up a shot and missing, you're gonna keep shooting. Like you miss out on one interview, there's another one coming like the next day, you know what I mean? And so you can't go in there and just try and like, hey, this is all your eggs in one basket, and try and be someone you're not just to land that one role. Cause if they don't want you for like, being who you are and what at this point, like, dude, there's gonna be another role that's willing to take you, which is, what happened with me.
Yep, absolutely agree with Lewis put in the chat as well. It's the abundance mindset, right, guys? It's not if you live in a scarcity mindset, like you're gonna scare everything that you want away from you. So you got to have that mindset of just at the end of the day, like of course I'd love to land this role, but also if I don't, what's the worst case really, right? The worst case is I just reach out to more people and get other roles. So yeah, I mean, you just have to make sure you guys have that mindset because that alone is going to bring you guys a lot of peace of mind. Okay, so let's kind of keep going. So you landed the job, you stepped into a setter role. Yeah, I mean, how'd your first month go in setting? Did you do well? Did you kind of struggle? What were some of the things that you ran into your first month?
Yeah, so just kind of background on like what I was doing. Just basic. I'm working for like an e-commerce offer. So it's like a mentorship. But I was pretty much outbound dialing. So, which I had never been spoken on the phone. I mean, before my last job, I was texting people. So I didn't even have any experience. Like I had appointments set, but over text, it's not even the same thing. And so this was like completely like brand new to me. And yeah, so pretty much how it worked is like there were some people that would text leads, and then there was the outbound dialers. The outbound dialers were dealing with leads that haven't responded to the SMS texters in 6 hours. So I was technically dealing with the worst leads possible. Um, and yeah, I just pretty much came in there and I trained like for a little bit, like the first day, nothing crazy at all, like barely anything. And then I got right into like thrown into the mix of everything. And then it just came down to like, I saw who was like the number one outbound dialer. Because we kind of had we had like a team of four. I literally just would listen to their calls because all of our calls were recorded. And I literally just did like everything they did in a way, but just way more of it. Like for instance, people like we could track our dials. People were dialing like 100 to 200 people a day, maybe 250. And like my first week coming in there from day one, like I was putting up like 400 dials, like sometimes more, sometimes a little less, but it was always like more than 350. And sure enough, like after the first week, I'd collected like more cash than all the other outbound people that had been there for a month, 2 months. And then like after I collected that first bit of cash, like I'll never forget it because it was like, it's a 5K ticket. Like I'm getting paid, like I was getting paid like 10%. It was like that one call had just paid me like $480 or something like that landed. And from that point on, like, dude, it was like, okay, this is real. Like this shit's not a joke. And then I just kept going. And then, like I said, it just became a numbers game. Okay, if I can do 400 dials in a day, I'm gonna get paid at least this much, right? If I'm putting up this much shots, I'm gonna get at least this much in return. And then I became like the number one outbound dialer. Everyone kind of got moved up because I was the new guy. They weren't just gonna move me up right away. So some guys got moved up to SMS setting. And then like within like my first week and a half, I was like the outbound like head kind of guy. So like we brought in more outbound people and I was already training them. And then
So
but
yeah,
yeah, on these
I want to
phones,
put
like
you super quick. Pause, pause, pause. That's insane, guys. Real quick, just so you know, like no prior sales experience, lands into a job, first week and a half is already top dog in what he's doing. Like that right there is testament to like you working with a mentor, and on top of that, like extreme ownership, on understanding that like yo, success is on you. Like he coupled his knowledge, everything he was learning from, using me with grinding his fucking ass off, and he became top dog extremely quickly. Most people don't have sales resources like that to just excel in a job that quickly. You guys all do. So I just wanted to really quickly highlight that because that's like, I mean, not everyone who lands a setter role is going to become the top guy. There can only be one top guy, and so like the way you do that is by doing exactly what he did, right? He worked his ass off and made sure he knew enough about sales in order to not only like be doing a lot of work, but having efficient work, like being able to convert many of those into appointments booked. Keep going.
and then, on these calls, I was not like, doing anything crazy. In fact, actually, I'll fast forward a little bit. My first day on, I was doing way too much. I was trying to sell everything, like speak way too much on the calls. And then someone on my team that was like up higher than me, we call reviewed literally once. We did one call review. And then once I like heard it back myself, like once I heard, okay, it makes sense to me. Like I wouldn't want to hear that on the phone. It all kind of just clicked. So another thing is like, you can't just like whether you're texting or you're calling people, you gotta like listen and like read over, what you're doing. Because, once it clicks, it clicks. And from that first, like literally the first night, it clicked. And then the next day, it was game on. And yeah, I was just being myself on the calls, like, just qualifying people, having conversation, like super conversational. Like it'd be like a 15-minute call. And I was just having conversations, like literally like being relatable, and doing all that. And you got to think about like I was doing 400 dials a day. So I was talking to a lot of people. Not everyone would answer, but just that experience alone, like just talking to people on the phone, getting more comfortable, like each day was like it was crazy. Like I was just feeling myself like really settle in. And then like towards the end of the month, I think I had done like I'd collected like in the month of December, because I started December 1st, I'd collected like 53,000 cash for the company, which the KPI for the month was it was 25,000. So like what you're supposed to hit as an outbound dialer was 25,000. And I had more than doubled that. And it wasn't anything crazy. Like I'm not trying to come on here and, say, hey, I'm one of one, like I'm better than all of y'all, because I'm not, bro. I just like whenever I started seeing success, I would call Ethan again. I would literally like be in my fraternity house calling him and saying, hey, like this is kind of the way I'm going on about phones, or going about like talking to people on the phone. Like, what do you think about this? Or what do you like? And it was little tweaks. Like I would say, like, my beginning kickoff on the calls were like, hey, is this still something you want to do? And Ethan literally tweaked and said, hey, is this still a priority for you? And just that like little priority, like just being able to call him and have him like implement that little thing in like my script framework, whatever it is, like I started seeing way more results off just that. And so I was still reaching out to him even though I was seeing success, just tweaking and getting better. And then yeah, 53,000 cash collected December. Um, and I was like the number one outbound guy. And then end of December, I had done so much on the phone. And I was good at it, right? Like I had done way more than what the company had expected. And so normally, like as an outbound guy, you'll get moved up to SMS setting and go into and text people and set that way, because it's like you're dealing with better leads. So it's almost like a stepping stone. But since I had been doing good on the phone, and I was overperforming, the company, like, starting January 4th, I trained a little bit from like end of December to January 4th. They moved me up to closer. And that's kind of where it puts me now. I'm a closer now. Um, they were warm leads, but like warm leads in the sense that like they all applied through a funnel for an application, but like in a way, like they hadn't been responding to text. So in a way, they were like, they were warm leads that kind of had like distanced themselves a little bit when I was calling them.
Yeah, good. Okay, and then so yeah, you moved into a closer. How quickly that happened in 1 month, right?
Yeah, so December 1st, I started working in the company, and then January 4th, because like in December, those next couple of days, I did a little bit more because they hadn't transitioned fully. But by January 1st, I knew I was going to close, and then January 4th, I started closing. And I want to say this: when I started closing, I had done so much on the phone, like I was nervous to close a little bit just because it was Zoom, it was face to face. But for the most part, I was not. I was hyped for it, and I literally only did like one half of a role play with like my boss or whatever before I started closing. And it was like 11 p.m. at night. Like he was busy the day. We did like one role play, and then the next day I was supposed to be closing. I had a scheduled call at 10 a.m. And so I was like, it's like, fuck, this is it. And then first call, didn't close it. Second call, closed it. Um, and then that week closing, it was just the same shit, man. It just translated. Like that same week closing, that next week, I collected 30K cash closing in that week. I was the number one closer like my first week, in terms of performance. And then, yeah, every week since then, I've been either like one or two on closing. And like last week, for instance, I was number one again. Um, and it's just been like, now that I've been outbound paired with closing, paired with like, you know, talking to Ethan, it's like you just get a different level of like confidence boost. Now it's like a real thing. Like, okay, January, I made like, over 10K. And you got to think back, like you got to look back to like October before I joined this shit. I was making literally $0 a month. And it's not even me like lying here trying to boost Ethan or anything like that. Like I text Ethan all the time. I'm like, bro, you changed my life. Like straight up.
Yeah, dude, fire as fuck. Great ass story. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, that's gonna be my next question. How much did you actually earn last month? What do you think, with KPIs, what's like the minimum earning for a closer in your role right now? Would it be like 8K or something like that? Or
Yeah, probably like minimum like 8K. Um,
yeah.
I would say so. Yeah, around 8K. And I did like, oh, I did over 10. I earned like over 10K this month. I don't know the exact number. But it was over 10K.
Yeah, fire as fuck. What was your best setter month of pay?
So I only
I
set
guess
for
you had 1 month, yeah.
man. Yeah, but I made like in that first month I made like 5,500 probably.
Right in
So
the
like I went from making 5,500, which at the time I remember I was sending screenshots to my parents, like, because I didn't tell my parents I joined this shit. If I would have told them, my parents are cool people, but hey, you're living in a fraternity house paying a dude 3 grand to fucking get you to make 10K a month, it just sounds foreign, right? And then I remember I sent my first 2 week paycheck, and it was like a wire transfer of like 3,000 something dollars in that first 2 weeks. And I was like, dude, fuck, I'm gonna go to the bars this weekend and fucking not have to worry about shit. And then now it's just like, I don't know, it's just what I do now. Crazy.
And for even more context too, like I've been in this space for years at this point, almost half a decade now. And yeah, I mean, like the thing with December is like Christmas month. So usually like shit slows up. But that's just a testament to A, remote high ticket sales, and B, the offer you're on. Like their offer almost doubles in December, which is again like not usual. Typically, for a business that's just already established, December is going to be a slow month. November is always the best, right? Because Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you get all those deals coming in. It's always going to be the best. But coming around Christmas time, like everyone's dropping money on Christmas. You'll still get sales, but it's going to be usually a down month. And so, even in December, like he's still able to pull in 5,500. That's his first month setting too, by the way. Like first month every setting, he's able to pull in 5,500. Pretty fucking crazy. Yeah. So I mean, I guess we had another question in here. I don't think we answered. Want to address it really quickly. Nate asked if you did more research about the product that you're selling for now before going into the interview.
Dude, not really, because like I feel like all the offers, like, I mean, at least for me, like, okay, e-commerce, I know about drop shipping, right? Or like fitness, fitness coach. I know enough about fitness. It's not necessarily about like the product, because they're not coming in there thinking, okay, he knows everything about this offer. He's just going to go out there and do it right away. Like there's training to when you get hired. They're gonna, once you get hired, they're gonna train you. Okay, this is the offer. This is that. That's the easy part. That's just, it's simple. And honestly, dude, like with appointment setting, like whether it's on the phone or texting, like you don't even really have to know that much about the offer. It's just conversation. Like you're not selling the offer when you're setting an appointment. Because if you just told, when you're appointment setting, like even now, like the leads I'm getting booked for me when I'm closing, if the setter goes in there and tries to say everything about the fucking, service that we're selling before they get on the call with me, they're not even going to show up to the call. They're already going to make the decision in their head. You kind of want to keep that like, mystery almost, but that's the setting tip. But that's like, you don't have to know about the offer like too much, and they don't expect you to really at all.
Yeah, and to kind of dive more into that too, yeah, like when I was doing solar, that's like the appointment settings we teach them like defer, 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 defer. And what I mean is like, yeah, like Grant just said, if they knew everything about the offer, the prospect knew everything about the offer before the closing call, there's no reason for them to show up to the closing call. So your job really is just to generate more interest, and you do that by like figuring out what their particular pain points are, and just making sure it's aligned with what your current offer is. So yeah, like Grant didn't have to do a ton of research about it because he already understands e-commerce. If you guys don't know what e-commerce is, like obviously like there's tons of YouTube videos out there. Just watch a couple of videos about e-commerce so you have a general understanding of what it is. But yeah, I mean, like you said, like it's honestly like they don't expect you to know everything. Again, that's why sales processes exist, is because like we don't know everything about the offer. And there's so much to cover with these remote high ticket offers that like we need like 45 minutes, 50 minutes to go over it. And, like I can't post 45, 50 minutes of content online and expect that people are going to go ahead and read all that. However, we can post, 2 minutes of content online, generate a little bit of interest, send them off to a setter who's going to generate a little bit more of interest, which will get the prospect to commit to a longer period of time where we can really, sit down and actually talk a lot about, our particular product or service. So yeah, like at the end of the day, you don't need to be like experts on it. No one's expecting you to be, and you shouldn't. At the end of the day, like it's honestly better if you know less, because then you can't say too much in the setter process itself. But obviously, just make sure you guys are like familiar with like the basics. Like if you don't understand what e-commerce is and you're applying for an e-commerce role, like that's kind of dumb. You know what I mean? Like you should at least know basic things about it. So that's kind of my piece on that. But let's ask you a couple more questions, and I'll kind of open up the floor for other people to ask questions that they have, and then we can go ahead and turn this recording off. And if you guys have any questions for your particular roles, landing roles or whatever, you guys can ask those questions. But Jared asked a question: how are you able to balance your schedule between school and closing? I'm in a similar spot with work right now. What's your response?
Yeah, so closing is, it's easier to balance it, right? Because when you're closing, you're only really like working when you have appointments. booked, like you're only hopping on call. But I say it was more setting. Um, obviously they don't expect you to work 24 hours a day, right? Like, I'd have classes and I was calling people on the phone. So it wasn't like I could go to class and set appointments. I wasn't like being able to just do it from my laptop. I had to be in a quiet room and set appointments. So it just pretty much came down to like discipline, honestly, man. Like I was living in a fraternity house. I didn't have a desk. Um, I had a room, which was kind of nice, but there was no quiet area. I would literally sit in my party room, like our rec room, all day. I'd like moved like this like little like thing that I used as a desk, and I would just lock myself in there and just dial people all day. And so like I get where you're coming from because I had the same thought, but the time thing, man, like if you want something bad enough, bro, you're gonna make time for it. Like, if you have a class, 3 hours a day or for 4 hours a day, then the rest of the fucking day, I'm sure you even think maybe you're doing some stuff that you could be doing, this, right? Like you have time. Just about like making it and prioritizing it.
Yeah, and to
I
dive
didn't think I had time. Actually, I told Ethan, I literally like before I bought it, I didn't think I had time. Sure enough, I did have time.
Yeah, and to dive a little bit more into that as well. Yeah, like as a closer, you set your calendar availability. So, like for example, if you're in Europe, you're probably not going to want to work the same hours as someone in America. But if you're in America, you could still work European hours. It's like you set your own calendar availability to whatever you want. Now, the reason I'm using that, Europe versus America thing is because I want to show like it's completely flexible. So, like Jared, like you have a role right now, like you're already working, dude, you can set your closer availability because you're jumping into a closer role. So you can set your closer availability outside of your current work window. So like whenever you're currently going to be working, if you don't want to have to dedicate any time ever during that time to your, to remote closing, don't set time outside of it. Like you don't have to have them overlap. And then yeah, beyond that, like as setters, yeah, like you guys, of course, like the more you work as a setter, the more money you're going to make, and the more you work, the quicker you're going to move up. But that being said, like I mean, I like there's other guys on this call where, I've literally met up with some of you guys. And like Joe, I think Joe left this call. Dude, I was with Joe at a bar, and he brought his laptop and he's literally setting from his laptop while he's out doing things. Like that's first of all, you don't even need to do it on your laptop. You can do it on your phone. And not all roles are going to be outbound dialing like that where you're talking to people. Like Joe was doing SMS, which means he's just texting. And that obviously, like you can literally be doing anything. Like dude, I take, I mean, I'm kind of a lunatic with it, but I mean, I'll take closer calls, like video calls while I'm literally like on a boat or, I took one night, I made $6,000 on a beach. Like I made one close while I was in the ocean being knocked over. I don't think he's on this call right now. I wish he was because he could attest to that. It's funny. But I mean, I've literally taken calls in the ocean. I'm taking them on the beach side. And that's with me having my face on camera. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go ahead and recommend anyone do anything like that, but you can, right? And so, like, that's the cool thing with the setter. If you're not doing any sort of outbound dialing, bro, you can literally be texting while you're doing anything else, bro. Like a lot of times, with the sales cultures on these teams, like guys will hop on a call. It'll be a group call. It'll be a couple of you guys just hanging out. You guys are all doing the same shit. Fucking, you guys got a poker game going on one tab, setting on the other. You guys are all just fucking chilling, having a good time while you're working. I mean, that's kind of the kind of energy that you'll find in a lot of these sales teams. It's like you guys are all doing the same shit. A lot of guys just like to kind of hang out with each other while you're working. And it's not something where like, yeah, I mean, it's just like any other job, right? Like you could be fucking an accountant and playing poker on another tab while your boss isn't looking. It's the same thing here, except you don't have to be at work. You can be anywhere you want. So yeah, at the gym, in classes, while you're at work, there's plenty of people in this program that are doing all those things. So yeah, I wanted to touch on that a little bit. Carter. So Carter, I know you just joined this program. Obviously there's a lot, I think you literally just joined like 45 minutes ago. So run through the course because obviously there's gonna be a lot you learn, but you did ask a good question, and I want Grant to give some advice here too. So how do you keep them interested in the product while not talking about the product too much before sending over to a closer?
Yeah. So when setting, obviously you got to qualify them. You don't just want to send leads over that A, don't have time for whatever you're doing, or B, don't have any type of money. But besides that, like at least for me, right? Maybe mine's different than y'all's. These people are warmer leads. And so these people apply, right? Like sure, I cold called them, but like I didn't just cold call them off a random list. Like these are leads that showed some sort of interest in whatever we're doing. And so yeah, like they're opt-ins. And so like, they're already interested. and you setting them and saying, hey, this is drop shipping, this is why you're going to make 10K a month, this is why you're going to do XYZ, is almost just pushing more. Like, you don't want to be a product pusher. Like, that's the new way of selling. I mean, you don't want to do that. And so all it comes down to is, like, on the phone, ask them what they do for work. Okay, I mean, do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy working a 9 to 5? Or is this something you like want to get out of? Okay, well, how long have you felt that way? Like, questions like that. You want to build like pain and urgency. With questions like that, honestly, urgency and setting is like the biggest thing. Like, I'm to a point now, like when someone books me a call, Jermaine can attest to this, like 2 days ago, if he's still in here. But like, based off the way I see the person texting the prospect, like the setter, like I could look at it and say, okay, this guy's gonna close. Because it's like just the way the setter went about it. He didn't say anything about the product. There's a lot of mystery. And he just asked the right questions to build urgency. Yeah, like just framing them. Like, it's all depending on our offer. If you're selling a fitness offer, you ask the guy, you know, if he's happy where he's at or something like that. He says no. Okay, well, how much longer can you afford to feel that way? Like, afford to put your health on the back burner, stuff like that. It's not about the product. These people do not buy for the product. In fact, my pitch, we go on hour-long sales calls, and my pitch is maybe a minute, 30 seconds. Like, and then I ask them if they have questions, and the way I sell, they rarely have questions, and I pre-handle objections, and it's that simple.
And all this stuff
But yeah,
just
to
is
answer
all.
that question,
Go ahead.
yeah,
I'll talk. I'll say my point after.
no, just to answer that question, it's just like, sorry, to answer that question, it's not about, you got to remember, it's that people are not buying, or they're not texting you looking to get on a call for the product necessarily. They want to hop on the call. It's just about building the urgency and getting them on the call. If they're qualified and you get them on a call and you have good closers, that's your job. That's it. You're not there to sell them in the DMs.
Yeah. And so, obviously, like for those of you who have already gone through the course, you guys know, like, this is stuff I talk about. I know, Carter, you just joined. So this is stuff that, yeah, it's like he just said some stuff that you're probably like not familiar with yet. That's just because you haven't ran through the course yet. And obviously, I know you joined like literally 50 minutes ago or whatever. So, no problem. But yeah, just make sure you run through the course, because this is all stuff I'm like teaching you. Obviously, like, this is something where I've been in this position before, and I've obviously helped a lot of guys in that position. And so to build on that, I guess just one last closing question, and then I'll open the floor. And anyone who has other questions can unmute themselves and ask Grant. But do you have any tips for someone who's like still early on in the process? Whether that be like still doing outreach, or whether that be they just land a role.
Yeah. Dude, if you're still doing outreach, another big thing is, like, I did it for myself. I think a huge thing as well is just frame yourself before you even message people. Like your Instagram, like if you're gonna message people on Instagram, dude, have your Instagram like feel like the vibe of how you want to be portrayed. Make your Instagram look like that. I was texting Ethan before, or right when I joined, dude. I had all my frat pics, all the partying, all that. Took them all off. Um, and that goes like a long way. So if you're still messaging people, and especially doing it on Instagram, you gotta really optimize that. And then, dude, just reach out to people like in a normal way, right? Like, and if not, like, let's say you're reaching out to someone that has like 1 million followers and is like a course or a coach of some sort. Do a little more research and try and find who's like who's a part of a team or something like that, or who's already on the offer. Like, it might be harder to find, but it's easier to get to people, like, that might not be the actual guy, because they're having leads message them all day, like prospects of who they're trying to close. And so sometimes you got to kind of, think outside the box a little bit and try and find, okay, same thing with closing. Who's the fucking decision maker, right? And sometimes the decision maker isn't the main guy. But just outreach, man, just hammering outreach and trying to be yourself. Send a voice memo instead of sending a text. You know, People are more likely to click a more voice memo because it's mysterious. It's the same thing as closing. If you just send a text and it's like, hey, this is this, I'm an appointment setter. Okay, they got a bunch of those messages. But if you send a voice memo or something like that, they're probably going to listen to it if they see it. I think so. That's how I landed the fitness one. Actually, it was a voice memo, just basic, just super quick. Complimented his page, acknowledged what he did, and then just brief introduction. But yeah, and then once you land a role, like I said, it's just about like seeing who literally is the best person in that role, and then you know doing exactly what they do and then some, and then like you know, they've already proven, okay, what they do works. So if you put more into it and you're putting in more time, it's literally, it's not leaving it to chance at all, right? If you're going to go in there and try and reinvent the wheel, then you might not see the same success. Maybe you do, but you know, you just got to find the top performers and replicate every single thing they do. Like with texting, it's easy. Okay, you read through some of their previous booked appointments. Okay, this is what they said here. Just fucking copy. If you have to, copy and paste the same shit. Um, but don't try and like reinvent the wheel, I'd say, when setting, because it's the top performer is a performer. He says the same stuff on the phone. He texts the same messages. So then it's just, you could do the same thing, just replicate it, put more in.
And to build on that too, because those are all really great points. Yeah, differentiating yourself through voice messages, or you send Loom videos. If you guys don't know what Loom is, Loom's just like a free screen recording software. So pretty much you can just like send a video without having to send a video. You can send a link to a video. A couple of tips on that too, if you guys are going to try that out. I have, in the course, I have like the employer DM strategy for you guys, where you can pretty much make a message just like copy and paste. You can send out to a bunch of people. Obviously like little minor tweaks, depending on the offers and whatnot. But obviously you guys hear that in the course. If you're going to send a voice memo, I wouldn't read word for word that message, just because like when you read it, you're going to sound scripted. So like instead, just know what you want to talk about and send like a genuine voice message. It's okay if you have like ums or ahs or whatever, or natural pauses. Like obviously if you sound like a fucking idiot, like listen to it first before you send it. But yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, just try not to literally read off a script when you're sending those messages out, because in that message, like it is so much more impactful, because they can hear your tonality, they can hear the confidence in your voice. And again, if you're just reading off the script, like it's so hard to, unless you guys are like fucking actors and been in theater for 8 years, like it's gonna be really hard for you guys to like really put emotion, like genuine authenticity into that message. So just try and like know what you're going to talk about, and then just record a voice message, listen back to it, make sure you don't sound like an idiot, and then go ahead and send it on through. And if you guys do Loom videos, same thing. But make sure you don't send the same Loom video to a bunch of people, because they can see how many views those videos get. And if you send a Loom video out and has 39 views, like that's just weird, like if you're going to send a Loom video, it's more personalized. So just do it one by one. And yeah, I would honestly recommend sending voice memos over Loom, just in terms of ease. But in terms of sauce, yeah, like a Loom video would be even saucier. So if you guys, want to go that extra level, sitting in front of like a nice setup and, just sending out a quick 50-second Loom video, explaining who you are, why you think you deserve that job. You brown nose a little bit, and then you go for the close. I think you guys are going to get some pretty good responses. But other than that, do you have any last second tips, or should I open the floor, Grant?
Dude, no, nothing really. I just want to like emphasize, to all y'all that are still searching for roles or in a role. Like, dude, I really didn't do anything crazy at all. I'm still 2 months into this. I mean, like literally, like 2 months into this. December and January is all I have under my belt. But yeah, I mean, just like, a lot of times it's limiting beliefs. Like someone asked about, like, with class, how do you make it work? Like I thought the same thing, and it was like once I like, just bet on myself a little bit more and put more time in. And once you see like the result once, it's literally just a snowball effect. Like once you set an appointment and it closes, okay, then you already know you can do it. And then at that point, it just becomes a numbers game. Like, and you just gotta keep pushing. But like when you do land a role, I would say, because these roles are like, they'll go quick. I haven't been fired, luckily, but there's like people that come through and get fired and whatnot like quickly. So you just try and like from day one, make yourself super like irreplaceable. Like you want to make it to where like you can't be replaced. Like your output and your like what you're putting into it, shows, and they can't go out and find someone better than that. And then once you stay in these companies for a while, you're bound to like, move up. A lot of these companies, they move quickly. So people move up quickly. It goes hand in hand. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But any of y'all could do this shit for real, man. I'm just like, I'm a normal guy that just fucking, I guess, made it happen. But we're still here. We're still pushing.
Yeah, and to kind of end this off, like something I heard, actually, I think this is from Think and Grow Rich. I know it's definitely from Napoleon Hill. It could be from Outwitting the Devil, but he defined failure in his book as when somebody lets temporary defeat overtake them. That's all failure is, guys. Like, right, we're gonna run into a lot of temporary defeat, but it's just that it's temporary, right? Like you're bound to run into obstacles. Like that is the way. Like obstacle is the way, right? Like we know that's gonna happen. And failure only happens when you let that temporary defeat overtake you. So the big thing is just like Grant didn't get the first job he applied to. He didn't get the second job he applied to. He applied to a ton, eventually got one, and didn't even, that wasn't even the home run offer. You know, he just stayed on it for a little while until he found that home run offer. So the point is again, like failure, I love that definition. Failure is only when you let temporary defeat overtake you. So don't let that temporary defeat win. Understand it is temporary. No matter how, annoying that defeat can feel, don't let it stop you. Because at the end of the day, like you guys are seeing what's happening. I mean, Grant's been in the program, yeah, like 3 months now, and he's a closer with no prior sales experience. He's a closer already, earning 10K a month. And if that ain't a testament, I mean, he's 20 again, 20 in the fraternity, bro. Like that's, if that isn't relatable, I don't know what it is. But yeah, I want to open the floor. I know we only got a couple more minutes here, and then I got to bounce. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, let's go ahead and answer some of them.
Hey Grant, I guess I'll ask one real quick. So I was the one that touched on the timing aspect of things, and trying to balance that. So for me, I just graduated and now I have a corporate job, right? So how are you balancing school and then being in a closer role if a company has like mandatory meetings or something like that, and if it were to fall on when you have class? Like I'm just
Oh,
thinking, like I wouldn't be able to join a mandatory meeting elsewhere, if you know what I mean.
yeah. Are you working remote?
Kind of, partially. It kind of depends. So I'm like sometimes I would say it's hybrid.
Yeah. Okay. Um, well, like, to some extent you can pick your own schedule. Um, but of course, like, you know, I'll say this, if you become a closer and you start like closing some of these deals, you know, I don't know, at some point it's gonna overtake what you're doing in your 9 to 5, unless you're
You're right.
super comfortable, you want to be in your 9 to 5 for a while. Um, but yeah, like I get what you're saying because I deal with the same stuff with school. Obviously have blocks in my schedule, like when I know I have something. I'm sure your 9 to 5 is the same way. Like the meetings are pretty much the same time every time they go on. And so you can set blocks within that. But yeah, I don't know. It's different. It's different for your schedule because I'm not too sure. All I know is
Right.
in school, I do a lot of stuff outside of this. And there's ways to make it work, right? As
Right.
long as you're transparent with who you're working with and you make it happen, like there's ways. I mean, dude, some of these calls that I close, like last week I literally closed a 5K deal at 1:40 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
I was literally going to sleep and the setter FaceTime me. Had my phone on my bedside table. I woke up and fucking turned the ring light on and that was it. So these calls, like they happen later for some offers. And there's ways you can make it work for sure. But it's just
Mhm.
about you finding that out with your schedule and prioritizing certain things.
Then through the interview process, are you just letting them know that you're fully available regard like I'm sure does anyone know that you're in school?
So when I did it, I probably shouldn't have, but I told them I was in school, but I was like, listen, like I'm in school, but I'm gonna make it work. Which going back, maybe if I was going to new jobs, I wouldn't tell them I was like a full-time student. Um,
Mhm.
just because I don't know whether you were gonna come in and make it happen or not, someone's come in and told them the same thing and
Right.
fucked them up and like, just completely dipped. It's happened in our company. And so yeah, just frame yourself. Don't tell them like, don't say too much that you don't need to say. I mean, at the end of the day, you're available. If you're available, then you should make it happen, right?
Right.
And so yeah, just frame yourself in that way.
Yeah, and to
Right
build
on.
on,
I appreciate you.
I know Lewis wanted to add something
For
to
sure,
that.
but
But to build on that, like, there's really only a couple things that are like time. What do I say? Like time restrictive, or like times where you have to show up at a certain time. That's going to be like the sales team meetings usually, and if they have like any sort of sales training, usually they want you to show up to that stuff too. So, usually it's only like an hour to 2 hours that you have to be there during that time block. And depending on the size of the team, like if they only have two closers and you'd be like the third, then which is pretty normal, then yeah, like for sure, you just communicate with that with them, and I can almost guarantee like they don't give a shit if they do it at 3 or if they do it at 4:30. Doesn't really matter, and they'd be willing to move things around a little bit if it helps. So just make sure you're kind of figuring out like when those mandatory blocks are, so you can be available during those times. But beyond that, yeah, like the rest of your job is so flexible. You know, like you can do so much. Even if you have a call on your calendar at 1 and then you have something at work come up at 1, like you can literally just call the guy real quick. I wouldn't text him much. Call him real quick and let him know, like, hey, I had something come up. You know, is there any way you can hop on in an hour? And then you can just move it around. You know, like it's most of the time. So on a lot of these offers, you're talking to like younger people. Obviously, it depends. Like that offer we just talked about before this call, Jared. Like, you know, you'll be talking to moms, so a little bit different. But like again, these are moms that are at home looking to create a income source while they're at home. So like, if you have to move a call back an hour and a half, like what fucking mom is going to be like, no, I don't have it. You know, like she's sitting at home. She's, you know, she can easily move things around. And that's how it's going to be on a lot of offers. Like, again, you're just talking to people that are looking for something to do with their extra time, which means they have extra time. So it's super flexible
And,
in that way.
yeah, and like if you do like this is kind of off topic, but like let's say you do have to switch your appointment time, right? You have a call at 1 and you're coming back from the gym or some shit, and you have to push to 1:45. Dude, a lot of times these leads will almost like not say it and maybe not even think it, but consciously, like subconsciously, like appreciate the fact. Like Jeremy Miner says it, like if he's pushing back a call, he'll literally tell me, hey, I'm going to take the trash out. Like just be a human, be a normal person. Because dude, these people get it. I mean, you know, you don't want to say, hey, you know, I'm out of the office or anything, or make it seem like that. Like, dude, hey, I'm taking the trash out, or hey, I'm coming back from the gym. They get it. They almost fuck with that more. Someone on my team said that the other day, and it kind of stuck with me. So that's just a little like tip there.
But I appreciate you, boys.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, or onboarding, like, oh, I just finished up enrolling a student. I use that one quite a bit.
I use that one all the time because it's more
Yeah.
natural when it's like, oh, a lot of people are joining this. It gives it kind
Yeah.
of like the urgency. But Jared, I guess what kind of job are you working? That'd be my first question to you before I give you some advice.
Yeah, I'm in a medical device sales, so my schedule's kind of interesting that it's not the same every day depending on what time I need to be in the facility. So that's why it kind of varies. So when they were saying like that offer that Ethan mentioned, where I would, like it's with the moms or whatnot, they have a set meeting schedule every day at noon. So like today I would be free, but then tomorrow I might have something at noon. Like I don't know yet. You know what I mean? So that's
Mhm.
why it's kind of interesting for me with like a set time period.
Interesting. Yeah, I think as long as you communicate, you can get away with so
Mhm.
much. I was balancing a 9 to 5 for like 10 months and working as a setter and closer. And I was just taking most of my calls during my lunch break. I would take like an hour and a half lunch break, take like two, three
Mhm.
calls, or I would do them from like 5 to 9. And if I,
Yeah.
at work, if I was doing something, I would just tune in into the calls with like my video off and like, hey, running around doing whatever. Like, and then just be communicative about the process. Like if you're not tuning in, just make sure that you tap in with like the offer owner like right after whenever you get a chance. Like, hey, what did we go over? What did I miss? Like just being proactive about a lot of things and you can get away with a lot of stuff. High ticket sales has a ton of flexibility, which is really fucking cool. Like Grant is balancing a full time. I guess he dropped down a little bit, but basically full time. And I mean, medical sales is a little bit different, but you could definitely do the same, especially with appointment setting.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, appointment setting for
Appreciate it.
sure.
Yeah, you'll be good.
I got a quick question off that, Luis.
Yeah.
So do you see guys that join in full time kind of excel a little bit faster if they're spending, 40 to 50 hours a week, just diving into it?
Dude, I wish I would have quit my job a lot earlier and just gone all in. Because you get to the point where you're kind of diverting your energy and you can't really just like none of your work really compounds, right? Like you're either kind of fucking up at your other job, like getting under the radar, make sure you're not getting in trouble,
Yeah.
or you're just like barely meeting KPIs at your role versus like, dude, if you just go all in with sales, like your skills start compounding and you start learning the nuances a lot quicker. And then your income also starts to elevate as well. Because at first, when you're leaving your 9 to 5, it's a little bit scary because you're like, damn, I'm going to take a hit, and I got my credit card due, and I got bills and whatever. But what I failed to realize is if I would have quit a while back, the I guess the surface of opportunities just kind of opens up a lot more. Because when I was looking for part-time roles, it wasn't the same caliber as the full-time roles are hiring. So I think the moment that I realized was like, hey, like if I actually quit, I'm able to find much better roles. And even if I'm not making money, like twice as much money with this new role, I'll at least be making the same amount for now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like how it's been for me so far. I'm making like, I don't know, $1,200, $1,500 more, but I do have a lot more flexibility, and it's obviously just going to continue growing.
And
Yeah.
to build on that
Thank
real
you.
quick too. You are coming from door to door where you were working a fuck ton. Dude, if you work 80 hours a week from remote ticket, you're really only probably working like 55 hours a week because you're gonna have a lot of no-shows. And like if you're blocked out from fucking 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., like, again, like when you get those no-shows, that's like when I go, like I usually like I won't take lunch until I get a no-show. Or like I won't go to the gym until I get a no-show. And like you're bound to get no-shows. Every once in a while you'll have a day where you get none. But like, dude, you're gonna like no-shows is a thing in this industry, like for sure. So obviously like we're trying to avoid that, but it's still gonna happen. So like at the end of the day, like dude, you can commit to it full time, like 100%, bro. You should be working a lot because even if you're, on paper working 80 hours a week, you're really not. You're only working
Right.
60 hours of that. So yeah, dude, 100%. If you are able to like put full time into it, dude, no brainer. You're gonna make. I mean, that's why Grant, even juggling, like Grant still was working like full time hours, and that's why he was able to see, such quick progression. And we'll be doing one of these every single week. Like, there's been a ton of success stories at this point in the program. So every single week, I'm going to be having one new guy come on and give you guys a little testimonial, and you'll hear that being echoed like over and over and over and over again. Like the most successful people are the ones that like literally had like fucking $50 to their name after they invested in this. So, they burned the bridges, right? Or burned the boats, whatever that saying is. They didn't have any other option, but back against the wall. Now I have to really take this serious. Second thing, it's like they committed to it fucking heavily. Right? It's like they put a lot of work into it. And that goes for anything, bro. Imagine like in a sport, right? It's the same thing in sports. Like if you fucking go hard as shit, of course you're gonna do better than anybody else who isn't. So yeah.
Exactly. You just put the words right into my mouth. You say you put yourself in a high pressure situation, you're gonna find out who you are a lot quicker than 3, 4, 5 months if you're just dabbling in it. So very good.
And you're a dog too. So like you're gonna be just fine, bro. I mean, you have sales experience and you were a dog in your old sales role. So you're gonna be fine. Like you should have literally negative levels of concern. I mean, you're gonna be extremely well right off rip. You're gonna be doing one of these in like 2 weeks, bro. Just watch.
All right, brother.
Any other questions? I know we went a little over, but I want to make sure I answer any questions we can. Okay. Everyone's pretty good? Cool. Well, if you guys have any questions, obviously, as always, feel free to reach out to me. You guys all have my phone number. Carter, you don't, I'll send it over to you right now. If you guys have any questions, cold call me. I pick up on the second ring. You guys know how it goes. If it's not super time pressing or whatever, you can obviously shoot me a text. But as you guys are aware, I get a lot of texts every day. So I always appreciate a cold call, even if it's just, especially if it's just one quick question. I'd rather take a 29-second call than, have another text in my fucking messages. So yeah, shoot me a cold call. Like I said, I'm willing to help you guys out any way I can. And beyond that, we have another call tomorrow. As usual, you guys know where to find it. Just go on the school, hit the calendar, get the link. And yeah, beyond that, have a wonderful rest of your day, guys.
Keep crushing.